It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy Anako's here. Alex Lindsay's here. Jason Snell is here. And there is big news. They're canceling the car. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Is your FineWoven case starting to look pretty ratty? Well, maybe there's some other choices. And Google says, Microsoft was gonna sell Bing to Apple, but we made a better product. So there. We'll talk about something we think's even better. MacBreak Weekly coming up next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, the episode 1 after 909, episode 910, recorded Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. Patina and Scuzz. This episode of MacBreak Weekly brought to you by my little doggy. My little doggy on my watch, DC Labs, and their Apple Watch app. It's called StepDog. StepDog is a virtual pet that lives on your Apple Watch face and helps you track your steps. Your StepDog moves around with you throughout the day. It's so cute. I'm actually doing it on the modular face. So he's got a little dog bowl. He's showing the weather as well. And I can have my other complications too. I've named my dog Ozzy. He moves around with you. He falls asleep when you hit the step goal that you said. He rests. The app is free, but for 99 cents a month, you can upgrade like I have and choose from over 30 dog breeds, including Labrador, Husky, German Shepherd, and more. Plus, it has cats for you cat lovers. I should probably have a cat, shouldn't I? You can also name your step dog. This upgrade includes weather forecasts for dog walks, and which is nice to know, and a leaderboard to compete with nearby StepDog users or friends to see who has the most steps, winning gold, silver, or bronze medals. Download StepDog. It's so cute. It's free from the App Store. Get it today. Thank you, StepDog. Ruff. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple. Joining us from officehours.global and Point South, Mr. Alex Lindsay. Oh, you've got a nice sweater. What is your sweater made out of?
It's made out of cloth, some kind of cloth. I think it might be wool, quite possibly. It was.
I only ask because I'm wearing my seaweed sweater, and it's very nice.
As you can see, I have a lot of distinctions about. I have a lot of distinctions about clothes. Clothes I wear.
Yes,
some are made of cloth, and then some are not made of cloth.
I think
some
that's
are
made of cloth from a sheep. Would be my guess.
Sheep cloth.
Yeah,
yes,
looks like sheep cloth.
Yeah. I can tell you that it's very comfy. That's the part
with us. Andy Anako from WGBH in Boston. World champion San Francisco Giant hat on, which I like.
Yeah, from 2010. There you go. I want to point out that I'm wearing a shirt that's made out of recycled plastic fibers, which is both cruelty-free and also, as we know, one of the most durable, long-lasting, looks fresh and new no matter how much wear you put into it, fibers anywhere. And that's never been disproven.
And it's recyclable, we hear.
Exactly. So you feel, it's a shirt that feels good while it makes you feel good.
And finally, from sixcolors.com, Jason Snell. Hello, Jason.
Hello.
Simple cotton tee.
It is a cotton tee. It's a nice one, but it's just made of cotton.
This
a new
is
renewable resource.
One of those Instagram things, middle of the night. I'm very susceptible, and I'm watching, and they show us how they're once every 5 years they harvest the seaweed in Iceland, and we turn it into these fine sweaters. And I thought, well, let's give it a shot. And there it is. These are all from Seashell, which is the seashells by the seashore, the fabric that they make these out of. They're very nice. It's very nice.
I hate to admit it, but the number of times that Instagram has surfaced an ad for something that made me think that is not an impulse buy, that is immediately relevant to my problems or interests. But then I'm like, I don't want to give them the satisfaction of clicking on that ad, though.
I just stopped. I gave in. I just gave in. By the way, the same company that sells seaweed sweaters also sells yak wool. So, Andy, Alex, you may want to look at the yak wool
I have actually looked at yak wool, and it's actually quite comfy. I mean, I actually can distinguish that because there's something I was just looking at.
Something about yaks?
I looked at it. I thought, wow, this is very soft. I wonder what this is. This might be cashmere. It was yak wool.
Interesting.
And I was like, okay, yeah.
Interesting. The reason I'm interested in all this stuff is that Lisa is allergic to wool, really, truly allergic to wool. And I have nothing but wool because I grew up in New England. And so I'm trying to replace my wool sweaters with something. She says this is scratchy, but hypoallergenic from her point of view. So
I think it's all cashmere. Just go.
No, she loves the feel of cashmere, but same thing. It's.
She's still allergic to it.
Yeah, you can tell right away. Jason Snell has breaking news.
Leo, this just in. This just in.
Yes.
I hope you were not planning your financial future around buying an Apple car.
What?
Because Mark Bloomberg, as we like to call him, Mark Gurman at Bloomberg, shortened to Mark Bloomberg. Maybe he's been put in the will. I don't know. Has reported that Apple today canceled their car project after spending, more than $1 billion, several billion dollars on it, and for more than a decade, they have finally thrown in the towel and said, you know what? We could probably use these resources better on places that are relevant to our core products and where we're behind, maybe like generative AI. But and they do have a bunch of people working on machine learning stuff because they were trying to build, automated self-driving cars that they then started backing off of. And as Gurman reported, I think a month ago, they really were at a point where they were trying to basically make or break. Is this going to be a product, and let's run the numbers, and when can we release a product, and what can we make? And it sounds like their analysis was, I got to be honest here, what all of our analysis has been for the last 5 years, which is that it doesn't really make sense and they shouldn't do it. So they have killed that project.
Mark says Apple made the disclosure internally today. Didn't take long for him to get the memo. Just surprising, the nearly 2,000 employees working on the project said the people who asked not to be identified because the announcement wasn't public at the time. The decision was shared by Chief Operating Officer Jeff Williams, Kevin Lynch, Vice President in charge of the effort. They're going to wind it down. As you said, employees may move to the AI division. There are 2,000 people, several hundred hardware engineers and car designers. I don't know if they'll... Elon is probably hiring across town. Maybe that's where they'll end up. They often seem to end up over there at Tesla. I'm disappointed.
A lot of them end up at the core car, the traditional automakers too, because they want that. They want that talent.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but
at Apple for a while.
Not only that, but they might be sending that talent back where they started. I mean, one of the few things that got me thinking that maybe they've got something they're committed to was that from the beginning all the way to just a few years ago, they were hiring people like top executives with amazing careers away from BMW, away from Mercedes, away from like major car makers, not Apple people who were gone into cars, but hey, why don't you leave the stable job at one of the best motorworks known to mankind and come to work for a company that has not even officially committed to making a car? And it always made me thought that whatever that pitch deck was, it must have been something incredible. So I wonder what those executives are thinking about right now. I mean, again, if anything, their foray into Apple probably made them more valuable because they can now, I'm sure they signed lots of stuff, but you can't make them forget discussions that they were having with Apple about like what a platform needs to be. So now they can bring all that expertise from the consumer electronics and back into BMW, back into GM, back into, God forbid, Tesla. Oh, actually, they could use it maybe.
So when you do the math on that 2,000, by the way, that's like conservatively $300 to $500 million a year. Think about how much they've been spending on this.
Just the staff,
and that's
alone.
Just the staff, and that's not the everything else. So you're probably talking about at least $1 billion a year that they were spending on trying to figure this out, and they decided.
Gurman at the end of this piece mentions that the board was also concerned about continuing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year on a project that may never see light of day.
So yeah, I mean, we said I think here we've talked about this quite a bit, and I think what's happened is as time has gone on, I have gotten less and less enthusiastic about this idea because it feels like they had a moment, right? There was a moment where the major automakers were not really getting it, and Tesla was on the move, and it felt like Tesla was doing it right and nobody else got it. And there was a place for another technology company like Apple to come in and insert itself. But boy, it feels like that time passed like 5 years ago, and everybody else has sort of gotten on board with more electronics and with moving toward electric, and other companies like Rivian have kind of come up in the meantime too. And like now you think, what could Apple contribute to the auto industry in 2030? And I don't, it would just be another car. And like, that's the last thing Apple should waste its money on.
Yeah, and also remember that when even when this story first broke, I think it was the Wall Street Journal that broke it in 2014, something like that. At least that's when we first started talking about it, I think. Johnny Ive was in his ultimate ascendancy. He was maybe, I imagine that his voice was also saying, here is something, we are a design company that works in electronics and consumer goods. The car is the ultimate design statement, the ultimate consumer good. Here is a place where we can make an amazing statement. I mean, again, this is the same shop that came out with the 2018 MacBook Pro. So maybe that was another force that was at least causing this to get a good launch to orbit initially.
A lot of alarm bells went off when there were those reports about how they were only going to launch it without a steering wheel and with complete autonomous driving. And it was one of those moments of like, what are they, what are they smoking inside there? Because it is not, it was never going to be like, that's like a worse delusion than Elon Musk. Elon Musk has these delusions of full self-driving that he keeps saying is just around the corner, and it has never come. But at least he builds cars with steering wheels, right? Like he's got at least a little bit of realism that this needs to be a real product. And Apple, I think that Apple in the early days of the car project was a victim of some people on the inside thinking big dreams like they could magic it into existence and not being real about what needed to be done to make the product happen. And I think that that's why they missed their moment.
And I think that when you take away the steering wheel, it forces you to solve the last mile. And that is just the most brutal last mile. I think that most of us would be really happy if you just solved the highway. Like if you just said, this is always going to work on a highway, I would be all in. But there's so many vagaries once you get off a highway of all these weird intersections and things and people's driveways and all these other things that it becomes very difficult. And so taking away all ability to make that adjustment makes a really, really high cliff to go over. I think that's the challenge there.
Don't go over a cliff. Don't do it. It's a bad car experience.
I think Tesla has a patent on that technology. They're pretty litigious about that.
When I was in Rwanda, this is the problem: is the maps think that there's things there. I was in Rwanda just blindly following Google Maps and came up to a cliff. And the water had washed away the road in between. But it was at night, and I almost went over it. And that's a human following that, not a machine doing it in kind of an unparalleled experience. And so,
I do think that we're in like chatbot AI and generative AI where we might have been like in 2013, 2014 with self-driving cars, where it was early enough in the game that nobody, I think, was 100% sure how easy or difficult this was. Kind of like how in the 60s, like we had, as it turned out, NASA had a very linear path to landing people on the moon. But they had, when they committed in 1959, 1960, they weren't sure, could we make these engines work? In theory, it could work. We don't know. Can people live and work in space? Can they spend 2 weeks in microgravity? And as they went on, oh, great. No, it turns out this is easy. Turns out this is solvable. Turns out it was very linear. I think that in 2013, because so much investment and so much talk and research went into this, they were at that stage where we don't know if this is a linear set of problems that we can simply throw enough money and experience at and solve them, or whether we are going to at some point hit a brick wall that is insurmountable. And I think that there was a time when everyone realized that no, level two is a perfection zone. We might make it to level 3, but self-driving is a fantasy that requires a breakthrough that is unpredictable and unforeseeable. And I think that AI is in the same level right here, as we're seeing with, Gemini is getting all the punchlines right now, but it's true of every single like large scale project to create a very functional, useful AI. They're still struggling to figure out how do we make this thing so it's stable and doesn't wind up spitting out 2,000 words about how it is a god and you must bow down before it and honor no god before ChatGPT.
Well, I think that also there's pre-COVID and post-COVID in the sense that when a big argument for self-driving is the commute. And when cities are 30%, with a 30% vacancy in downtown, it's not clear that that commute is going to return at the same level again, or if it will remain. Like over time, more and more people, you saw this it jumped obviously during COVID, then it backed up. People are coming back to the office. But I talk to people who are, if they're being forced to go into the office, their LinkedIn is fresh and moving. Like they're looking for remote. They're not quitting, but they're looking for the next place that they go. And these are people that love their job, they love the people they work with, and they love the company they work for, and they're still looking at moving, because they don't want to drive. And so I think that the other thing is that the next generation. I mean, my kids are in no rush to get a license. It's hard to get, the next generation just isn't interested in cars, And so I think that that's the other thing is if you're not going to get this done in 10 years, they're not the market for the cars may be a lot smaller than it was, when you started doing the development.
Yeah.
It's just a different world too. I mean, not only are, there are issues with electric car sales sort of like slowing down, although I do think in the long run, electric cars, we're in a transition from electric to gas. There are some challenges there involving the marketing of the cars. You need cheaper electric cars and you need used electric cars. There's lots going on, and you really need a charging infrastructure that is for everybody, which has not happened yet. But I do think all the major automakers are like, they're on it now. They all have sophisticated computer systems that they're building that let you do lane guidance and if not full self-driving, some level of autonomy. And all of the little Silicon Valley secret sauce that was there is everywhere now. It's spread out everywhere. And it true also that this is a real not invented here moment, because Apple could have, I believe at one point Elon Musk wanted Apple to buy Tesla from him. Rivian was a startup that probably could have gotten sniped. There are some other, Lucid is a company out there that is very Apple-like, but is an electric car company that they could have probably gotten at some point. If they believed in this, they could have bought somebody, but I really think that in the end, they had this dream that they were going to make the car that nobody else could make, and then they hit reality. And so, at that point, you just walk away, I guess.
Yeah. It just never made sense to me at all. I could if Apple was the kind of company that at CES or at some flashy show would say, hey, we made a concept car. Like Sony has made concept cars of here is a Sony badge, Sony design, Sony interior, Sony electronics project. And of course they build it on a chassis that someone else provides. It would have been a very interesting design project. But of course Apple never does that. But if we wished into existence an Apple car that was a functional, practical, wonderful car that hit all the buttons, you'd still wind up with, okay, Apple, but you're going to have to someone's going to have to service these things, and someone's going to have to sell these things. And it's not going to be the mall in Leominster. You're going to have a dealership. You're going to have people who know how to sell these things. And again, how much money do you think you can make off of every single copy of this car that you can get a hold of all the real estate you're going to have to acquire just to make this happen? And it's just something that this is why I always settle into the phrase, I don't understand this decision, because as soon as you say, oh, this is stupid and it's going to be a big mistake and they're going to rescind this, that's when, oh, well, it turns out that Apple knows something that I don't, which is a lot of things. But nonetheless, when things don't make any sense, you hope that Apple comes up and say, no, we figured something out, but it turns out that they didn't.
How soon before we see the same memo on Vision Pro?
No.
15 years.
Yeah.
No, I'm
It took them
serious.
10 years to do this with the car, right?
They won't really, but they will. This is
You mean the product is shipped?
Yeah, I mean, once Apple ships product, I mean, Apple's notorious. If you talk to people that used to work at Apple, of spending hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars on products that never get out the gate. They just go, and it just, the Titan was so big that they had to do it on the street so people could see it. But there's those buildings in there that are top secret, and all the other things that they're building, all kinds of products. I've never been in one of those buildings, but I've heard about them. I've heard that they exist, and that they have tons of products in there that are never going, that are a big reason that they're super secret is because that stuff may never leave the building, but they go through the full production process and figure things out and everything else. And that's what I think we've heard stories about that happening with the Vision, the Vision Pro. But a Vision Pro is there's at least 3 or 4 versions they're going to release before they even think about whether it's successful or not.
Yeah.
And I got to say, as a user, I think that the only thing that worries me about the Vision Pro right now is how much time I spend in it at a time. and I just forget that I'm in there for so long. And I'm like, oh, I was just in there hanging out. And then I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, I lost 4 hours, and so that's the thing that I'm having, cause I watch movies in it all the time now. And anyway, I just find it to be, it's a fascinating, I'm more concerned about my health of keeping it on for so long, but it's a very comfortable experience. And I think that they're on a pretty good path, that they're probably going to keep on expanding. So, but they're not going to change course for 10 years. Like there's no way they're changing course for 10 years. This is we're 10 years into a 20-year curve, and there's no way they're going to stop.
In fact, there was another report, I forget who made it, that they may be working backward to this as well, that there's some talk that they're also experimenting with other wearables that would be more like glasses. And the idea there is not glasses to cover your vision, but glasses to give a perch for cameras, so that you could have, if you imagine like a camera plus AirPod, or cameras on the AirPods, but that's tougher because of where your ears are. And I don't think there are any big human ear upgrades coming, like where they're going to move to a better location. So they may have to do something else. So they may start working the other way too. If you can imagine putting a computer interface that can see and can hear and can talk to you, and maybe even can notice your gestures and respond to them. That's not Vision Pro. That's a very different thing without screens, essentially, but is still like an AR product of a sort. And I think that they're pretty committed to the idea of finding ways to get computing into, these other spatial environments by, whether it's outside in or inside out.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before, but I think that every company is missing a trick by the idea of one Bluetooth earbud that is a really, really good assistant that can simply talk to you, be a fully immersive, be a fully reactive interface to software to do simple things that you might want to do in the real world, with an optional, sort of tie clip size button camera, so that if you want to give the assistant the added advantage of being able to see your environment and being able to ask, hey, where is my lunch date, and so the earpiece can then tell you, oh well, it's the look for the red building, there's a door to the left, that's number 12, that's the restaurant you're trying to meet at. And when you need privacy, you take the camera off and put it in your pocket where people can't see it. I mean, the ironic thing is that I do think that the more I read about, again, I still don't have a Vision Pro, but the more I talk to people who have it, the more I read about experience about it, the more I think that Google Glass had roughly the right idea. Not the right time, not the right technology, certainly not the right understanding of how such a device would be perceived by the general public. But the idea of a very lightweight device with, as you said, it had a camera, it had bone conductive audio, it had a microphone. And in terms of giving you a layer into reality, it was just a tiny, tiny little 3x5 card at your peripheral vision that would simply put information that you were asking for that might be helpful at that moment. I think that once we can get that technology into a pair of eyeglass, inobtrusive eyeglass frames, that is a product that a lot of people are going to be very, very interested in, especially matched with a really good AI.
Okay, you guys are crazy, but all right, if you think so.
I mean, there's a lot of, we'll see what happens at NAB, but between NAB and WWDC, we expect to also see a lot more support hardware and so on and so forth of shooting stuff for it, which is interesting because the market is so much smaller than Meta's, and people weren't necessarily building a lot of tools for that. But I think that might have been also Meta building its own cameras and stuff like that. But I think that we do see a fair bit of excitement related to, how do we generate content for it. So it'll be interesting to see. And they dribble new things out. We got I don't know, Jason, did you see the new dinosaur, the new thing from their dinosaur documentary? There's there was the one where it walks over and looks at you, but now there's 5 minutes of an interaction. Really good.
Fascinating.
Really
Can't
good.
wait. Wow. Apple will never ship another Vision Pro. This is the only one. So enjoy it. As long as
All right.
Okay.
I'll put my money on it.
And listeners, mark that clip for future use.
Yeah. Please, let's
never.
Yeah,
there will never be
That'll
another
be a
Vision
great
Pro.
button on the supercut of all of your Vision Pro negativity. That'll be a great last shot, and then it'll dissolve to a future where everybody's wearing them on their heads and they're shaking their heads.
If that's the future, I don't want to live there.
Yeah.
Really don't.
Oh, that's an even better button right there, actually.
Yeah.
Let's put that in the clip. Put that in the supercut.
Well, you could put that in my obituary, and then he died.
It's going to be in a hologram hovering over your tombstone.
Yeah, exactly. But only if you have the headset on.
To be fair, Leo, like I 100% agree that the hype of last year, the product did not match that halfway. This is Apple deliver again. We were all speculating, so a lot of this is on us. But what Apple delivered turned out to be a very simple and obvious device whose only real distinction at this point seems to be that the components they put into their version of this thing are way better than the components that existing products already had. But they didn't solve any problems. They didn't figure anything out. They just said, what can we do that's really, really great if money were realistically almost no object whatsoever? I mean, I was always hoping that the great demos would not be, hey, look, there's a dinosaur in your room, or hey, look, you've got floating virtual screens in front of you. I've always hoped that it would have been, we figure out a way to make augmented reality, virtual reality more relevant than simply education, training, and entertainment. And I don't think they've demonstrated that yet. Maybe in a couple of years, maybe in 3 years. I'm not writing it off yet. This is an Apple TV trajectory where it's a very simple, boring box that simply gets progressively better and keeps making enough money or being interesting enough to Apple that they keep making it. It's not the next iPhone. It's not the next Apple Watch. I don't think it's the next AirPods either.
I think it's the next Apple Hi-Fi. That's what I
think it's the next 80-inch monitor. I don't think Apple's doing any monitors at this point. I think that they're building toward, again, when I want to watch with my family, I take it off and I watch a big screen and we all have fun watching some rerun of something that was made 20 years ago. But when I'm actually watching movies, I just put this on because I'm getting to the point where I can tell what kind of film it was shot, because I see it so much sharper in the Apple TV than I see on my TV, and I think that's the thing that I'm getting used to, and it's kind of burning up my. I'm now shopping for a bigger screen for the family because the screen I have now is not keeping up with the Apple TV's movies. So,
Apple has added quantum safe crypto to its iMessage. Even though there's another thing, by the way, that will never ship, is a quantum computer. But okay, now you're safe.
You almost said Quipto, and I love it.
Quipto.
Let's call it Quipto.
And
post-quantum
Leo pushes the whole check of chips into the center of the table.
I'm going all in. I think honestly it's more likely.
It's going to be great for the editors because they don't need to consult through hundreds of episodes of MacBreak Weekly. They're going to get it all this here. One, and It's got all of Leo's pronouncements in it. It's great. Perfect.
Actually, it was interesting. Signal, the CEO of Signal, said this is good for Apple because we were already doing it, which I didn't know. There have been the National Institutes for Standards and Technology has been working on crypto technologies that would, in theory, survive quantum decryptors, quantum-based decryption computers. And they're actually, it's not settled yet, ironically. There are a number of different choices. One has already been picked off. But the idea is that your communications may survive for, decades. And if a quantum computer is, even if it's 30 years off, you don't want your messages to be decryptable then. So it makes sense they're putting it in. It certainly makes it I'll tell you what it does, which is probably even more important, is it sends a message to world governments, including our own, and we're serious about end-to-end encryption. We're putting it in. PQ3 is the cryptography protocol they chose for iMessages. It will launch on iOS and iPad 17.4 and macOS 14.4.
Yeah. This is a really good move. I mean, yes, it's unnecessary right now, but as you say, I mean, science has progressed to the point where they can take a scroll that burned to a crisp in Pompeii and was buried for 1,000 years,
such a great story,
get the text off of it.
But I gotta guess that the people who wrote that scroll at this point don't really care that their secrets have been revealed.
Who knows?
Maybe they do. I don't know.
I mean, this is their legacy. Who knows?
Well, again, there's there's a reason why like so many like World War II ciphers are still top secret, because we don't want we weren't just protecting information from the Nazis. We were also protecting information from general knowledge of here is what we were doing, here is what we were thinking, here is what our opinion was about this world leader that in public we were very, very chummy with, and here's some people that in the press we were slagging off, but behind the scenes we were very, very chummy with. So there are a lot of secrets that never want to be revealed. And although the technology for quantum computing for this kind of decryption is still pretty far off, the technology for beating it has been around for I think about 5 or 6 years now. So what a wonderful statement that Apple is making by saying, look, in principle, if we can have stronger encryption for iMessage, we're just going to do it. We don't have to see a perceived immediate threat in order to harden your messages against future technologies.
Well, and
unless it will, I guess they also did the math and figured out that quantum computing will not cause people to switch to Android, so that made it safe to make iMessage stronger.
Well, and I think that I think there's also a pressure as a lot of countries, particularly the Five Eyes, are trying to push regulation to limit what you can do. It's much harder for them to take something away from an operating system that already has it than it is for them to say you can't keep on going down this path. So this may not be useful right now, but you could see them making it illegal, in the UK, that they're talking about that kind of thing right now. But they're trying to say, but it's much harder for them. So I think that there's a lot of pressure on the companies that want to do encryption to do it right now, because then publicly they're saying, well, we already put it in there, and then people also have the choice of not upgrading if they really want to keep it. And so I think that there's a one of the reasons that Apple will probably keep on rushing down here is as long as they're allowed to do it, they're going to keep on ratcheting that system up.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing threat. Nevada just, I think they filed like an emergency order to get Facebook to turn off end-to-end encryption again with this long, stupid screed about, the children, your Facebook is invested in the abuse of children because law enforcement can't take a look at their private communications. And this is something that is, the weak points are still being sought after, still being exploited. So add more bricks to the wall.
Take out your FineWoven cases. We're going to compare in just a bit as we continue MacBreak Weekly with Jason Snell, Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, and that schmuck who hates Vision Pro. There's actually a strong rebellion going on in the Discord. I don't want to hear any more negative about the Vision Pro. All right, I've said my piece. We can. But where is our Vision Pro segment? We haven't done the normal half hour on Vision Pro.
New developer beta came out today. Should we talk about that? I think that the personas are better in 1.1. There you go.
When we come back, all of you who are disheartened by the negativity on Vision Pro, we're going to spend the next half hour talking about the Vision Pro. Stay tuned. We'll talk about.
Does that mean we can't talk about the glass cracking?
Yeah, we can talk about that, but not too negatively. Say it in a positive way. Yeah,
it's a great thing. It makes it's now easy. It's like the old VW Beetle with that split window in the back. That's a very, very good design choice. And they gave you that upgrade for free. You didn't have to bring it in.
Our show today brought to you by ZocDoc. Now I have to say, I'm not negative about this because I have used it and it is great. We know you got to compromise sometimes in life. You got to get an apartment that fits your budget, even if it doesn't fit your dreams. You've got the upstairs neighbor who's a drummer and on and on. But when it comes to your health, we cannot compromise. We should not compromise. We do not have to compromise. Check out ZocDoc, ZocDoc. It's an app, but it's also a website where you can find and book doctors who will make you feel comfortable, who will listen to you, who will prioritize your health. More and more, I'm hearing complaints from family and friends about their doctors. Well, you don't have to stay there. You can move on. Just get ZocDoc. It's a free app and website where you can search and compare highly rated in-network doctors near you and instantly book appointments with them online. Now, I know you're saying, but wait, what about my insurance? You can actually narrow the search down to only doctors who take your insurance. And it's not just doctors. It's dentists. It's chiropractors. It's a variety of different disciplines. You can narrow it down by not just insurance, but location, even availability. If you're in a hurry, No compromises with ZocDoc. You got more options than you know. And every one of these docs has verified reviews from actual real patients. And I think that's great. That's something that's been missing until now. Now you can really see what their actual patients say about them. The typical time to wait to see a doctor booked on ZocDoc, just 24 to 72 hours. That's it. Some of them even have same-day appointments. I want you to check it out. Go to ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. Download the ZocDoc app for free, then find and book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. We thank him so much for supporting MacBreak Weekly. All right, we're very excited for our Big Vision Pro segment. It's been, it's funny. It's been getting shorter and shorter as the weeks go by, but we now know there's new dinosaur material. That's good. New developer edition just came out. Andy Anako, okay, Mr. Negativity. How? By the way, as long as we're talking about this, I've seen it on Reddit and stuff, but I don't. Do we know how many of these have cracked? More than a few, it seems like.
Yeah, it's enough that it's kind of a syndrome, and it's not like they're cracking spontaneously or because of the heat of the device when you're using it for a long time. Apple Insider, I think, was the first people to talk about this as a phenomenon that apparently a lot of times if temperature changes will cause an almost perfect vertical line to appear like in the middle of that top level of coating. Doesn't seem to affect the screen, doesn't seem to affect the operation. Engadget said that they've saw the same thing happen on their review unit. Nobody is saying anything about it hasn't been dropped, hasn't been hit, nothing like that. And so it seems to be some sort of thermal thing that is very conditional, because if it were happening everywhere, it would have been a much bigger story than this. But the fact that like Engadget and Engadget has been seeing this means that, okay, this is certainly a thing.
There's no question, I'm sure, that Apple will replace that without question and charge.
That would be disaster. No, they're not wearing it wrong. They're not holding it wrong.
Right. It's just cracking.
2 weeks after. I mean, this is exactly the sort of thing that anytime Apple introduces a new product, even a new version, a new build of the iPhone, in the first 2 weeks, engineering back in Cupertino is looking for odd problems like this,
right?
Because they're not going to figure out what all the defects of this design are until 100,000 people are beta testing it, or 1 million people are beta testing it.
Is this just like a glass cover on top of a screen? Or is it a functional piece?
It seems to be just the glass that protects like the rest of the screens inside. So it doesn't. Again, the reports that I saw on Reddit and elsewhere said that it still works fine. It's just that there's obviously a very perfect linear crack. I mean, looking at pictures of it, like if this were the promo photo, you would think that this is a two-piece design for the glass. It's just such a perfect like bisection. And
it probably doesn't affect functionality. How's yours, Jason? Is it holding up pretty well?
It's all fine.
Yeah. And yours too, Alex?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
So it's impossible to know how widespread this is. I mean.
And I have to admit, after someone who owns a lot of electronics, I have a tendency to put everything back. Like it's got its own little place. I put the cover back on it when I'm using it. I'm not taking it. It's not like I'm taking it on the road. So it's probably, if it breaks in my position, it's probably something really wrong.
There are fans in it. How hot does it get? Is there a thermal?
I don't really notice it. I don't know if there, I've been in I haven't been in it as long as some other people, but I've been in there relatively often at 3 or 4 hours and not felt any heat.
No, you can't. If you hold your hand right above the front of the visor part, you can feel the heat coming out of it if it's been working. But like literally, that's an unnatural movement you wouldn't do. Yeah. You can't hear the fans. It's a non-issue. Yeah.
Dr. Do says no cracks here. I keep mine in my backpack in my trunk every day. So it may be just there's a manufacturing defect in some number of these glass panels.
Yeah, it's possible the panel is too tight in a very few number of these panels, and that's makes it susceptible to these things. I did a little bit more reading while I was listening, and apparently at least a couple of people on Reddit have said that Apple wanted to charge them $300 for under Apple Care coverage, or $800 without Apple Care coverage. I don't know if they I would have to. I'd have to see a lot more statements like that before I would absolutely believe it, though.
Well,
That could be just a one-off.
The way it goes is that first off, they say the glass cracked and they're like, well, that's a repair. And then eventually Apple realizes, oh no, there's a whole set of these that are cracking. And then they change what the rules are. And that's all part of the process of a new product. It's just, this is, I mean, it's amazing. It took like 3 weeks for the first gate to appear.
And
for the Vision
to
Pro.
date, no one has put it in a blender, which is amazing. Although Jerry Riggs Everything did take a knife to it. As one does. Bill of materials from Omdia, which is a research firm, they say, now these are wild guesses, but they say it costs Apple, just for the materials alone, $1,542, which is a lot, even for a device that costs $3,500 at retail.
Well, and it also assumes that they used they didn't throw any of them back.
Right.
So in something at this precision, they may be losing 20 to 40% of them. Yeah. Like, just to kind of put into reality, when they did the first trackpad on the iPad, on the Mac Pro, that was not a physical trackpad, they were losing 40% of them.
Wow.
So when you calculate that in, that's assuming it's full usage. They're probably not making very much money on this headset. When you put in the labor and you put in the loss and you put in all the other bits and pieces around it, it's probably not as much margin as some of the other products that they make.
Yeah.
Omdia says that Apple pays $228 for the micro OLED displays it uses, and each one needs 2. They buy those from Sony, which had no comment for CNBC. That's where I'm getting the story. Andy?
Yeah. Oh no. Just kind of echoing what Alex said. There are a lot of costs that aren't in the bill of materials, and that includes marketing. That includes really the fees have to pay for testing. It's a good chunk of change. So no, they're not making like $2,000 worth of profit on every one of these.
In fact, they're probably not making any profit, I would bet, right?
Yeah, exactly. Apple's just quickly. Yeah, Apple's typical profit margin is between 35 and 40%. So, I'm guessing that it is much lower than that on this product, because again, they're not when they're only a company like Apple, when they're only making a few 100,000 copies of something, there is no. They've basically lost a lot of the advantage they have by buying components and manufacturing in bulk. So. Again, this is the launch edition. Hopefully, they'll be able to sell 1 million in a couple of years.
I love how companies make these wild guesses about how much something costs and then make them precise down to the dollar.
Yeah,
you're like, well, sure. Like there's this lesson in precision and accuracy that someone did teach them.
Well, to be fair, it is a guess for certain definitions of the word guess. Obviously, they're not getting information straight from Apple. However, this is a specialized industry where there are analysts who want this information. There are competitors who want this information. And just like picking horses, if you are really, really great at picking horses, you're still guessing. However, the sources of your guessing are very, very fine pointed, and a lot of people are willing to put a lot of value in that. So I'm thinking of the line from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it says, whereas the Hitchhiker's Guide is often incorrect, it is at least definitively incorrect.
Yeah, so. I think the problem with a lot of the bill of materials articles, and it's not just this, it's all of them, is people who know, but they also imply to a lot of people who don't know that, Apple makes this thing for X and it actually costs Y, and they just walk away with that in profit. And of course, it doesn't talk about creating the factory, creating the machines that assemble it, doing all the R&D, designing the chips that are in it, their custom chips that are in it, and they don't cost what the chips cost to make them, right? Yep. And then all of the software that's going on behind the scenes, none of that is in there. And so it can lead to a misleading view about it. Now, the truth is that over time, all that stuff, assuming you sell a lot of these, it amortizes out. Like the building of the factory, it costs a lot of money up front, but then for every one, it just eases the pain a little bit. But like, that's my big problem with it, is that you get this sort of like simplistic view that, Apple makes something for $200 and sells it for $400. And as a result, they're walking away with $200 profit on every one, which is never the case, right? It's way more complicated than that.
In fact, that's kind of what Tim Cook said in February on the analyst call. Somebody asked him how much it cost to make. He said there's 5,000 patents in the product. It's built on many innovations that Apple has spent multiple years on, from silicon to displays and significant AI and machine learning. All the hand tracking, the room mapping, all of this stuff is driven by AI, and so we're incredibly excited about it. But yeah, it's expensive, and they've been doing this for a long time. They've spent billions. It'll be a while before they make that money back. I remember the Microsoft saying we've still not made money back on the Xbox after years and years, and the Xbox is a considerably simpler product than the Vision Pro. All right, to show us your FineWoven cases. I have actually abandoned my case, but I still have the wallet that gloms onto it, and it's looking pretty ratty. Not as bad as Joanna Stern's, though. Hers really looked awful. Her tech newsletter says, there it is, everyone. My iPhone 15 Pro Max's FineWoven case. After 5 months of use, the edges are peeling. The fabric is scratched up like an old CD, and it's browning like a rotten banana. I've been waiting for the CDC to show up at my house and declare it a biomedical concern. It doesn't wear well, but we knew. I know, she's good. We knew that it wasn't going to wear well because people scratched them in the stores, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
But it hasn't worn that well.
The display unit, Apple, who's so persnickety about the best presentation, when you can walk in the Apple store and saw a really horrible-looking display unit.
This is, the discoloring along the edges of the wallet. There are plenty of scratches. It's not as bad as Joanna's describing, but it's not pretty. I did replace it with a leather case, which is going to have the same kind of wear and tear, but at least it's leather, right? You kind of expect that. And it ages in a kind of a more appealing way than plastic threading does.
A lot of people were making that point. This has really exploded on social media because as soon as this came out, and as soon as Gruber asked for like, hey, show us your cases, like everybody who's been burned by this case had to show exactly how horrible these things look. And a good argument was that this is why making an environmentally positive product is tricky because we don't like to see. A lot of people are very, very opposed to harvesting of animals for leather. However, a leather product is really, really durable and can last for the life of the phone. If you've got a really nice, environmentally friendly recycled plastic interwoven thing that looks so crummy that you're going to be landfilling it once a year, you have to pick your poison.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my wife has a FineWoven case. I said, look at this and decide if you really want to do this. She's like, it looks fine. Well, I'll put it on. And what I've been struck by is, there's a MagSafe circle around the Apple logo now that is sort of like gotten embedded in it from being on a MagSafe charger. So that's bad. The FineWoven material itself is okay. It's not in great shape. It's certainly not like a leather case that would be sort of like look almost nicer being a little more rugged. What struck me about it is the plastic ring, the plastic bumper around is battered. It is smashed. It's got chunks out of it. It's got marks on it. And like her leather case, which she used prior to this, like it never looked that bad around the outside. And that was one of those things where I thought, oh, this is one of the concessions they made is they've got this FineWoven material, but they've also got kind of a more aggressive sort of just plastic edge to it. And the plastic edge, maybe it's taking some beating, but it's like, it doesn't look good. It looks real bad at this point. After just whatever. One of the great things, 6 months.
The great thing about this wallet is like 17. Yeah, at least 17.
You want it to
look
look like that. That's like Dad's wallet.
Keeps looking better and better every single year. I don't ever intend to I don't expect to ever throw away this wallet until I never have any more money, which either technology or my livelihood is going to ensure.
Gruber put a poll on Mastodon. A third of the people say their FineWoven held up well. 28% said okay, 40% said a piece of junk, and then there were a lot of images. It is $60, and Apple did it in lieu of a leather case.
Yeah. There's a 4-year-old or 4 years of use Apple leather case, and it still looks good. It feels good, tattered. And it's got a couple of marks in the corners, but even those marks look better than the equivalent marks in FineWoven after 5 months.
Yeah, that's Patina. There's a difference between Patina and Scuzz. This is Patina.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like Apple. I don't know. I love that they did something that's more environmentally sound, or at least seems like it, but it didn't work. It didn't work.
This is Patina. This is Scuzz. Don't confuse them. Patina, Scuzz.
This fall on ABC, they run the streets their way. And they don't care.
It's highlights for children, Andy. It's like, Patina says, hello, madam and sir. And Scuzz says, yo, what up, dogs? Yeah. Don't be like Scuzz.
Don't be a Patina.
Be like Patina.
I mean, don't be yes.
Yeah. I do have to say, though, like, you can get your cases from just about anywhere. And so I'm glad to see Apple at least taking a risk with this. They did something that I'm not going to use the word courage. I am not going to use the word courage. But if there's a company that can afford to say, here is something that's never been done before. We have faith in it. We are going to put it out there, knowing that if this is an abject failure, it will not take down our entire company. Unlike a company like InCase, of a company who just does nothing but cases, it is known that all of your 2024 $60 cases are terrible. That could be a blight.
That could be bad.
Yes.
All right. That's the bad news. Here's the good news. According to Apple, your iPhone 15 battery is better than we thought. You don't see that very often.
Yeah, so they were especially if you don't have any Meta apps on it. It lasts forever. I mean,
Apple did not say that, by the way. I want to point out. That's Alex Lindsay who said that.
I don't say that facetiously.
Right.
Like it is a night and day difference, and I'm not worried about the privacy or anything else, and I don't have anything about Meta really. I just the battery life is just way higher. So when I jump on Facebook or something like that, I do it on my desktop because I like my phone to be able to last for 2 days after which is about what I get it. What it lasts for me. So I can easily forget to charge my 15 and be at like 6 or 7. I was like, it's at 20%, but that's after 2 days since the last time I plugged it in. And so I think that it does last a long time. But typically I charge it every day, so I don't have a lot of those. But usually every evening I charge it up and I'm done. And so it has, which is a big difference between a lot of the older phones. I mean, they've gotten better over I think the 14 and 15 specifically felt like they have a lot more battery life than the previous ones. Well, definitely now, but even at their heyday, I think that the size and also the size of the phone helps. So if we're talking about a Max, there's a lot more battery there. Mm-hmm. So it definitely lasts longer.
The improvement is due to Apple making continued updates to battery components and power management systems over the years. Apple says this change in battery cycle lifespan, which, by the way, Apple originally said it would retain 80% of its capacity at 500 charges. Now they're saying, that's more like 1,000 charges. Apple says this change in battery cycle lifespan only applies to the 15, 15 Plus, 15 Pro, 15 Pro Max. So upgrade today. Previous iPhone models continue to be rated at retaining up to 80% capacity at 500 cycles. However, the company says it is currently investigating older models as well. That's bizarre. Do you think it's a hardware thing or a software thing, or why would it only apply to the newest models? Did they do something? Yeah, Apple needs to say what they did. Did they change some hardware?
They said battery software. The components are changing. So
that's why it's 15 only.
Yeah.
Except then they're investigating what they can do for the older phones.
You have to say that. Trying to help you. But the newest one is the best one.
Well, it says that the improvement is due to Apple making continued updates to battery components and power management systems over the years. So it could be it's both hardware and software, I guess.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know. This reminds me a little bit of when Apple had problems with the antenna gate, and they just changed the indicator on the screen. It's actually better than it looks or it sounds. So you got good news and you got bad news. You got ripped off on the FineWoven case, but your battery life is twice as good. So there. Yeah. Google says Microsoft tried to sell it, Bing, to Apple. I don't know how Google knows this, but Google says they know this.
No. Yeah.
They offered to sell Bing to Apple in 2018, but search quality issues got in the way. This came out in a court filing earlier this month from Google's antitrust case, unsealed on Friday.
Yeah, I thought there had already been a report that
I thought
said
so
this. I guess
too.
this is the verification of that.
Yeah. Okay.
It came. This is what happened on 3 days ago, the 24th. 600 pages of unredacted filings came in, so we know a lot more details about it.
Okay.
For instance, Apple's God, actually, it was such a good quote. I actually pulled it up, but I can't find it now. Essentially, Apple's current head of AI was in charge of taking a look at Bing, like in 2018, when this was a serious consideration, and he just found this so terrible. One of the things that's in actual testimony that. So apparently, one of the things that kind of disillusioned him was when he did a search on, he did a Bing search and a Google search on what was Annie Lennox's first band, and Google search got it right away, and also provided all of his responses were like links to actual other websites. Bing said that her first band was the Eurythmics. That's wrong. And he also found that, at least consistently while he was doing all of his testing, that whereas Google tried to send people out into the internet because they realizing that you were searching for something on the internet, not trying to become a better customer of Google, Microsoft was constantly trying to keep users inside a Microsoft ecosystem when it was finding answers and sending it to places like shopping, like product information, stuff like that.
We do have some quotes from the filing. Eddie Q said, Microsoft search quality, their investment in search, everything was not significant at all. And so everything was lower. So the search quality itself wasn't as good. They weren't investing at any level comparable to Google or what Microsoft could invest in. And their advertising organization and how they monetize was not very good either. Now, should point out, Apple might have some vested interest in that because there is, some question. This is why this comes up in the Google antitrust case, as to why Apple continues to pay Google continues to pay Apple all that money to use their search engine. In fact, Satya Nadella testified in October that he's the CEO of Microsoft. He has focused every year of my tenure as CEO to see if Apple would be open to doing the same for Bing. Q testified now this is interesting, if Apple did not, maybe Q shouldn't have said this or else it's a misquote in CNBC, said that if Apple did not receive the massive payments it saw from Google, Apple would have developed its own search engine. But fortunately, we did not have to. And we got paid billions not to. Wow. Actually, this is the Justice Department saying this in the filing. So this is the Justice Department's quote of Eddie Q saying that.
It's a good document. It's John Gianandrea, who we talked about because he was in the head of AI for the car project. This sums up Bing's problems trying to be a portal, not linking out to the web when it thinks it has a vertical experience, video, recipes, etc., and just further behind the curve on freshness and spam quality. It's what you would expect from a much smaller investment with a differentiate in verticals thesis.
I think when it comes to freshness and spam, it's important, at least to me, that the spam be as fresh as possible. You don't want to eat old meat.
That's not a selling point, though.
No, I guess not. Okay. Actually, I've been using Arc. Have you guys tried Arc on the iPhone? It strikes me that Google and Bing are both kind of in a perilous situation with the advent of AI.
Yeah.
The idea that instead of searching, especially on a mobile device where you don't have a lot of screen, instead of searching for individual websites that I can read, I just want an answer. And so Arc Search has a button that says browse for me, and it generates a page based on, usually it's half a dozen other websites that it's then synopsized and gives you the answer. So you don't have to do the surfing. It does the surfing for you. I think now that's problematic for the content creators. But it's what the user wants.
Yeah, I mean, this is Google's whole thesis for years and years and years, to lots of complaints, is that we drive traffic to sites. We are not stealing. We're not stealing content from other people to boost our own profits. The News Corp and other news organizations have been trying to get Google to have to license content for search, just based on the fact that it's finding things in search results. And I think that Google is playing very, very fair with this. As a user, I do mostly like that feature. As a content creator, I don't like the idea that someone might ask a question and something that I spent hours, maybe days or weeks researching, and then communicating correctly is just a data element that'll be thrust into an auto-generated AI blurb of text. I mean, they have a really nice feature where you can be on a web page and then you do a pinch gesture and it will summarize what you're looking at, summarize the web page, which is really nice. But again, when I read this, I'm like, is there a robots.txt line I can put in there to say don't do this? Because once again, this might be ego and arrogance, but I don't, again, if I spent a long time turning like 1,600 words into 820 words that were presented a point of view and a story that I really, really worked hard on to say that, oh, well, that's not important. Just January 12th, $1,800, 16 gigabytes of RAM. Like,
well, it isn't for a certain type of searcher. That's what they're looking for. I mean, you're not going to go say, tell me what Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities is all about, and then say, good, I don't have to read the novel unless you're a student writing a paper. But, so I might read your prose because I like your prose, Andy. But if I'm just looking for what's the price or is it good, that's what I'm looking for, and it's given me what I'm looking for. Jason?
Right. And that person, I mean, I, as a content creator on the internet, I have the same feelings that Andy does, but I also admit that, we can trick ourselves into thinking that person is a lost reader, but a lot of those people are not going to read. They're just looking for utility. They're just looking for an answer. And what I would prefer is a presentation, and it doesn't matter who it comes from, that basically says, I got this information from this source, which has obviously a lot more than the 5-word answer I gave you if you want to know more. So your content ends up being the why, not the answer, but the why is that the answer, or what's the story behind that? Like, I can look up Annie Lennox's first band and find out it's not Eurythmics and think to myself, I had no idea it was in a band before Eurythmics. What's that story about? And so having a prominent link that says, I got it from this source or these sources, and you can read a lot more. I want that because I may just want a quick answer. I may want to delve in deeper, and like, I'm okay with people who don't want to actually read me writing 5,000 words about the Vision Pro, when actually what they wanted was an answer to a trivia question about some aspect of the Vision Pro when it shipped, last month. And that's okay. But you've got to cite your sources. And I agree, Leo, with you that this is a moment of real danger for Google. We've all talked about and seen how bad the internet is getting in terms of search engine optimized AI-built content that is just garbage and echoes other garbage that echoes original sources. Google should be, when I do a Google search, I want an answer, not a chatbot. I want an answer, and I want Google to be able to detect, oh, there are 8 news sources that have taken a quote from an original source and turned it into this, like, a 2,000-word rewritten thing based on the original source. I want Google's AI to be able to read them all and say, oh, they're all citing this original source. What you want is the original source. That's what Google needs to be doing. And right now they're failing at it.
ARC offers both. So I just did a normal kind of Google-style search, blah, blah, blah. But I can also do a browse for me on what was Annie Lennox's first band. It goes through a bunch of sources, and it lists them. Wikipedia, Encyclopedia Britannica,
it's building
and so forth.
A page with answers and
it's got
info.
Images. It's got the answer right. The tourists, which I didn't know the answer to. It's got a lot of, I think, kind of great stuff. Now, admittedly, this was created by a machine from real humans writing. So for that reason, it's probably pretty bad. It does give you actually more links than it used to generate the page at the bottom. Yeah, I just feel like this is what people want, and this is what they're going to get. And use your robots.txt, but you do that at your peril, the same as the French news people who said, well, Google, you may not use our snippets, do not refer to us. And that didn't work out so well, or it was Spain. It did not work out so well.
Well, and I think that if it gives me the answer, as someone who's doing research, if it gives me the quick answer and then says, here are some other reading suggestions
for reading later
that are next to it, a lot of times I'm digging into those. Like if I start research, like here's some highlights. And I think that the big thing that has me not read folks' posts is often because they're burying a lot of stuff into the text. And so for me, I want to read most of the stuff at the top.
Google's known that for years. That's why they do the knowledge graph, and then next to it do the search results. They know that you want the answer.
You want the answer, but then a lot of times I'm like, okay, well, how do they, and like for me, blog posts that are not structured well. So they have to have headlines. If they're going to have a list, put a list. If they tell me there's a list at the top, I got to see a list. You know, I literally scanned for the list and then I just go, okay, it's not here. And then I go somewhere else. Or they just have to put big headers on things so that I know where in the sections that I'm looking for. And I think that, I think some writers get really good at doing that. Other writers like to just bury a bunch of prose in there without a lot of headers. And for me, it's just
Have you read any recipe articles lately on these recipe sites?
No, I don't. No, the funny thing is,
it's 18 paragraphs of the history. By the way, that's in response to Google. That's in response to this knowledge
SEO.
graph. That's SEO doing that.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure. By the way, I don't even have Safari on my homepage. On my dock, I've got Arc. I thought at first, well, that's silly. Why aren't they making a browser? But now I understand, and I think they're actually very smart because you can't do an alternative browser really,
right,
on iOS, but you could do this.
As a content creator, I'm going to say something that you might not expect me to say, which is not all content creators on the internet right now should exist. In fact, I would say most of them should not exist. Most of them, you mentioned the recipe websites.
I wish they'd
go away. Some of those sites are good. Most of them are garbage. And the reason they exist is because they have ginned up these things with ads on them in order to get search engine traffic to come to their site in order to make some incremental money on ads. And that is not, most of those sites, those aren't really people who care about the subject matter. They are chasing dollars at the edges of Google's algorithm because it's a place where they can make some bucks. Well, that's what it is. And that is why the web is broken. And so I am very sympathetic to worrying about AI eating the lunches of content creators. But some of the content creators out there, I would say maybe lots of the content creators on the internet right now, are not interested in making content. They are interested in exploiting failures of Google, and they should go.
And I think the unfortunate thing is for some of those, we'll just talk about recipe sites a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that I think that they started by loving what they did, but they had to figure out a way to make money. And then they started adding, and they were told just put ads into everything.
Recipe sites, yeah.
And so they've slowly just junkified their entire thing to make money, just to make it work, Yep. And you see this everywhere. And so, but I will say that I've realized, and I didn't realize this until I mentioned it on the show, like I hadn't really thought about my behavior, and I realized I barely use the web on my phone, like ever. Like I just don't use it very often. I use it for a couple little things, and then I jump back into apps. And the reason for it is all of these ads. These ads are so much harder to ignore or to go past on a phone than they are on the desktop. I don't have any blockers. I just scroll through them quickly. But on the phone, they're so slow. And they're so like painful to go through. I realized I just had stopped. It hadn't occurred to me, but I've kind of stopped using the browser very much, online, except for searching for like Wikipedia or searching for something that is pretty well known to me that isn't going to have a lot of junk on it. But yeah it's interesting.
It's a multidimensional question, and what users want and the experience that they want is not always an important driving force. I'm not equating what we're talking about here to piracy, but everybody would love to be able to simply Google the Barbie movie and then be able to stream the Barbie movie immediately without paying for it. They can't have that. And if there's a site that decided to provide that for you, they would get sued and the courts would tell them to stop doing that. So this is one of the things that we're going to have to navigate as a society. Like I joined the group, and what was Annie Lennox's first ban using the search generative experience on Google. And I think that I do like the way that Google's approach to it. I agree that if someone just wanted the answer to a trivia question, they are not going to spend 8 hours, no matter how fascinating my biography of Annie Lennox is. They just, so for that people, you get Annie Lennox's first band was The Catch, which she formed in 1977 with Dave Stewart, blah, 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 blah. The band's name was later changed to The Tourists. But underneath that is, here's a Britannica article, here's a Wikipedia article, here is, and you click on things, it will take you to that article with that information already highlighted for you.
But did it tell you that the Tourist's original name was Dragon's Playground? I don't know. By the way, what else is cool is I can send you, and I just did, Andy, I texted you, the search results, which I think is This is from Arc, and I think it's very, very interesting.
In 1976, Lennox was a flute player with a band called Dragon's Playground, leaving before they appeared on ITV's talent show New Faces. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing is like this really shows like how difficult it is to slay that particular dragon known as Google search. That there are a lot of systems that can punch in a question about the solar system. It will tell you like what the length of a day on planet Mars is. There are not a whole lot that does a subtle search of figuring out what it is you actually want, but also trying to figure out what sources are considered to be authoritative in this field. Also, even within those sources, is this a valuably written piece, or is this a brownie recipe that starts with 800 words about every time I look at a bag of chocolate chips, I think about my gap year in Provence. It's no. So it's, I think that all these industries are going to have to figure out how to do this without being just simply a plagiarism machine, without being a piracy machine.
Well, and really the creator that's most,
and Google's done it.
The creator that's most damaged by Google's approach is Wikipedia, because it's almost always, as it is in this case, from Wikipedia.
Right.
I think Google gives them has subscribed to their commercial service. They
oh good, so they give them some money.
I think they're not just scraping. And also I think we're going to see a lot more things like what Reddit did, which is to say that look, we have a database of user provided answers to questions, and if you want to, we want you to be able to use it, but you're going to have to pay to license that information. There's, again, a lot of these things are in motion, and we don't know where the ball is going to finally land. But I do think it's not. I do think that Arc's solution is a little on the cowboy side, and I don't think it's going to stick. It's going to be a point where it gets too successful, and then they're going to get chokeholded into into making some changes. I think. And
my primary way of getting to Wikipedia is I search for something in Google. It shows up at the top.
I always click
like
that
one of the first things search, and then I click on Wikipedia. But that's how I find that to be a lot cleaner than going to Wikipedia and doing the search. Yeah. Wikipedia, I do it in Wikipedia, and it gives me like 1,000 versions of my search. On Google, it generally gives me the one that I was looking for.
I'm very happy with Arc. Yeah. That's all I can say. And you're right. I understand. Yeah, exactly. I'm also happy with my leather case, and many cows have died for it. And, life is tough. If you're a cow or a creator. Sorry, I need the milk. I don't know what any of that means. All right, let's take a little break here. Daddy needs some advertisements. That's what Daddy needs, but we'll continue.
Let's milk the cow.
I'm going to go milk the cow, so to speak. But we will have more in just a little bit with Andy Anatko, GBH. When are you going to be on GBH next?
Actually, this week, Thursday at 12:30.
Nice.
WGBHnews.org.
Great. Alex Lindsay, who is at officehours.global, always covering fascinating material. I'm giving you your plug in the middle of the show, guys, just in case people don't make it to the end of this Vision Pro-less show. Yeah.
We have we have Renee Ritchie on the graymatter.show this Friday.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so we're pretty excited. And you can actually go to askgraymatter.show and put a question in. And if you listen to it next week, we might use it. So you can collect them there. So if you go to askgraymatter.show with the E.
I know there are lots of people who want to know more about Renee Ritchie.
Yeah, it's fun to talk to Renee about YouTube now. It's always been fun, but it's really fun now.
Yeah, he's an expert now. He's their creative.
Very articulate and very good at telling you what you need to know. Yeah.
Yeah. Graymatter.show. And you said it's askgraymatter.show? All one word?
All one word.
So no ask dot. It's Ask Graymatter.
Nope.
Got it.
It's just askgraymatter.show.
There you go. Renee Ritchie.
There you go.
Creator Liaison, YouTube. You got till March 1st to ask your questions. Thank you. And, of course, sixcolors.com is where Jason Snell makes his home, resting in between the multicolored graphs.
That's right.
What are
so many colors?
What are the big stories coming up at Six Colors?
I don't know, man. It's quiet now. I'm trying to take a little nap, get a little rest after Vision Pro and the Apple report card. Been a busy.
It's tough time for you.
I'm going to curl up a little bit and just kind of re-energize myself.
If you go to sixcolors.com/Jason, you can see what he means by re-energize. Only 40 podcasts this week. It won't be too crazy. Yeah.
I think I'm only recording, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 podcasts this week. It's a light week. Light week.
Oh, punter.
Yeah.
You're a punter.
Like I said, curled up, resting, recharging.
Good. You deserve that. Our show today brought to you by those fabulous fellas, but also our sponsor, Wix Studio. All right. We love debates here at MacBreak Weekly, right? We got a debate about Wix Studio. Who gets more out of Wix Studio? Designers or devs? Well, first of all, I should probably explain. If you don't know about Wix Studio, it's the web platform offering the flexibility agencies and enterprises need to deliver bespoke sites hyper efficiently. Let's get back to the debate. For designers, you can create these fully responsive websites starting with a blank canvas or choose a template for any layout, tweak per pixel with your CSS, and if no code's your thing, you're going to love, or you just like to move fast, you're going to love the ton of smart features like native no-code animation and responsive AI that adjusts every breakpoint, for instance. For devs, Wix Studio offers a powerful suite of homegrown web APIs and REST APIs. I know you love those APIs, don't you? Quickly integrate, extend, and write custom scripts in a VS Code-based IDE. And, of course, you get an AI code assistant, too, that knows all about Wix Studio. Plus, it's all wrapped in rock-solid, auto-maintained infrastructure. AI that writes your code or fixes your breakpoints. Fully responsive editor or a zero-setup dev environment. No code animations or no code animations. Designers or developers, search Wix Studio and find out for yourself. Wix. Go to wix.com/studio. Click on the link at the show page. You'll find out more. Thank you, Wix. We love you guys. I love you, man. Let's see. You guys have put in a lot of links here. Let me see. Oh, Jason, you were talking about Apple Sports. Now, I am using an app that you recommended some time ago that I'm quite a fan of. Let me look at my news because I can't. The name is generic. Sports Alerts.
Sports Alerts, right?
And I really like it.
Early ones.
Yeah. I'm sure Apple's is prettier. Sports Alerts is not exactly an aesthetic masterpiece.
Yeah, and Apple has the advantage that it's free and there are no ads and they don't care, right? Like they are doing something different with it, and that's an advantage that they have.
But there's no F1 in that one. There is F1 in the Sports Alerts.
There isn't. It's really limited data source. So yeah, a couple weeks ago I got to go talk to Eddie Q, which I had never done before.
What?
That was pretty fun.
Yeah, you lucky
fella. He was fresh from the Super Bowl, no less. He had some opinions that I'm not going to share about the Super Bowl coaching decisions, but you could guess what they were. Anyway, but he's a sports fan, and it was this is clearly his baby because, not everybody in the tech industry understands the sports, but Eddie does, and he said that he literally was standing courtside at Warriors games comparing the beta of the sports app to the scoreboard and getting on his team for the data source being too far behind because he really wants it to be a fast experience and as close to real time with the scores as possible. So they launched it. It's free. It's got, NBA, NHL, NCAA basketball, men's and women's. It's got Premier League and a bunch of other top level European leagues, as well as MLS. It launched the day of the MLS season kicking off because, of course, Apple. And so it's an interesting product. It's I would say a starting point. It's very clearly a passion project for Eddie, but I think it also maybe is a stake in the ground. I mean, it's not called Scores, right? It's called Sports. I think we can see that it's going to be more
Scores
than it is
actually
right now.
Howard Stern's favorite strip club, so that probably meant
this is also true. But Apple Scores, they could have called it Apple
available.
Scores. They did not. They called it Apple Sports,
right?
And I think that there'll be a lot more.
But it is Scores. It's all Scores all the time
because the data source is not new. The data source has been there. You've been able to add live activities of many sporting events in the TV app for a long time, but nobody knows it because especially on iPhone, to get to the sports interface of the TV app, you've got to go to the main page and scroll down until you get to sports and then tap, and then there's a sports page. It's bizarre. Anyway, you can also tap open in Apple TV in the Scores app, the sports app, and it will take you to that game page. And from there, you can either play it if it's on any service that is linked to your TV profile. So it's not just for Apple TV. I jumped to Max to watch an NBA game on TNT, for example. It knows where all that stuff is. Or if it's got the data source, the button next to it is Start Live Activity. Your live activities, if you set your favorite teams, by the way, live activities for your favorite teams just fire off automatically. Like
that's
I
nice.
came out to get my cereal one weekend, like last weekend, and the Arsenal score was on my phone in standby mode because it's one of my favorites, and so it just automatically kicked into live activity mode. So it means that right now Apple's experience is scattershot. I heard somebody say, I expected the experience to be more like stocks, where you pick your stocks and then you see the articles. It's like it's got a news interface. Well, if you pick your favorite teams, there is a favorite teams news interface in the news app. So you've got like the news app has that, the TV app has this, and then the Scores app, Apple Sports, has this. And it's all like, I get why it's like that, but it also probably should be more integrated than it is. It keeps it simple, and that's why it feels so early days to me. It's like they've been slowly building the pieces together, but I think this part of it was Eddie Q literally saying, we've got all of this great live data and no app that showcases it. Let's get that into an actual proper app. And so they built this. And I think there are going to be lots of updates. I mean, he told me that there will be a March Madness update, right, where they will add features that will be more tournament appropriate. I think brackets and you know who you play next and stuff like that. They'll do an update for baseball season where they add a proper baseball view. Obviously, things like F1. I think the challenge there is it's a different way. It's not a game, and so there's a different way of displaying data for that they're going to have to work on. They've committed to football in the fall. But they don't have to do it now. Again, perfect timing right after the football season when MLS starts means they can take the NFL and college football and be like, later. We'll do that later. But like, I think it's a passion project for him, but I think it's also strategic. I think Eddie Q, as the head of services at Apple and somebody who's a huge sports fan, is really motivated to make Apple do some good stuff in sports. And honestly, I think that when we talk about like ABC, ESPN, and Warner Media, the Turner companies, and Fox are all talking about building their own streaming service where they combine their sports things into a thing that most of the industry is calling Spooloo, which is short for sports Hulu, basically.
Making up words industry.
Spooloo makes me laugh so much because it is like, wait a second, you just got out of your joint venture with your competitors and you're starting a new one about sports. But anyway, the challenge there is that those are all competitors. Apple, although it does have some sports, could position itself, especially with the power of the iPhone, as the top level. It's like whatever services you've got, it will be the springboard, and you start there, and then you jump off to whether it's the ESPN app or it's Max or it's Spooloo or whatever it might happen to be. So I think Eddie Q is actually the right person to be in charge of services for Apple at this weird moment in sports rights history, because he does care about it. So I think there's a bigger picture here, but right now it's just it's a simple Scores app. That's all it is.
Yeah, and that's actually what I like about it. I like that. I feel as though it's a weather app for sports, where and there are great sports apps that are for people who are really into sports. I want to know, did the Red Sox play yesterday? If so, what was the score? If it's ongoing, is there a reason for me to turn it on and watch the game? I want to know what just simply the ability to be the central truth of here are the sports leagues and teams that I'm following. If there's something interesting happening with any of these, please action this appropriately. Whether it is, let me take a look at this in news, let me watch it on my my Apple TV box, or whatever. And the advantages of a built-in app that comes for free is that how many times have any of us had the problem of we find an app that's version 1.0, like a third-party commercial app, it's 1.0, and it's perfect, it's elegant, it's streamlined, it's fast, it's responsive, but then 8 years later, the simple list app is now like a multi-corporational project tracking and chat tool with VR and AI components to it, because they still have to keep it commercially viable. They have to keep people coming back to subscribe. The idea of the simple app that could maintain its simplicity over years is also super attractive. Yeah. There's only one thing that really surprised me and kind of disappointed me, was the integration with DraftKings. There is, so not only as part of the data you get, is it's also what's the line on each of these games, on each of these teams.
People want to know that, and I know.
Okay, exactly.
Me too. I'm with you.
I do appreciate that that's part of how people interact with their favorite sports teams now. However, I mean, bad timing. I'll just say, like 2 weeks earlier, the Wall Street Journal just had a really great feature article about a psychiatrist who got into sports gambling apps like during COVID. And DraftKings, and here's what the experience of how DraftKings was exploiting her and cultivating her to keep, I'll give you free money if you keep gambling. And even when, and assigning, hey, wow, you're gambling a lot, so we're going to assign you a VIP host to, again, keep you gambling. Because the whole business model of this, like in the main gaming industry, like in the lottery, like in pay to play games, is that you're a 5%, like a single digit percentage of your audience is giving you 70% of your profits. So you have to keep these people in. So all I'm saying is that it's unnecessary. It's a lot of the same questions of what I was asking, like why does Apple want to get into commercial consumer card debt at a time when commercial consumer debt according to the federal government is at record high levels and continues to go at record high levels? I don't know why.
It's really hard.
They want to get involved in. I really wish that they had said that we don't need it.
It's like it's part of growing up, Andy, when you realize that the people you put up there on the pedestal are just normal capitalistic enterprises like every other.
Oh, no, again, multi-trillion-dollar company, I know, but
honestly, sports, this is betting in the U.S. For people who are not in the U.S. and don't know this, betting has just been recently, sports betting has been made legal in about 20 states.
Since 2018.
Not here in California, thank goodness.
Not in California, not yet. Maybe not ever, who knows? But so there's a gold rush. The truth is, though, a huge portion, and I'm not in this subculture either, but a huge portion of people who are interested in sports are interested in gambling, and it is something that is part of it. And I think, by the way, I'm going to clarify something you said. You said their partnership with DraftKings or something. They display odds on games. There's no branding. There's no linking. If you go to the settings app to turn off the odds, ironically, to turn them off, you will see that the data source is provided by DraftKings. But that's it. That's the only place that there's DraftKings branding. And you can turn it off. I am a little baffled why they don't either ask at launch or put it in the app, but they decided to make you have to go find it. Or to turn it on, but I kind of understand why they want to tell people who care about odds that they'll show them the odds. That said, if you really care about the odds, would you not want to use your gambling app to do it instead of the scoring app? But it's one of those things that I have to come to accept, is that gambling is a part of sports, and it's not a part I care about, but it is a huge part of sports in the U.S. increasingly. In the U.K. for a very long time now. I've heard a lot from people in countries where gambling is seen as really disgusting and awful. And like, I get it. I'm kind of on your side about this, but I think you can't turn your back on the fact that it is an enormous portion of the value in sports in the US is money from gambling. And I'll also point out, because I definitely saw a bunch of people who are clutching at pearls this week about this, that when the MLB Friday Night Baseball launched on Apple TV Plus, their studio show that kicked it all off, it was a branded, sponsored by a casino studio show right out of the gate. It was, I think, MGM sponsoring Apple TV baseball. So this is not the Apple and sports and gambling all kind of go together. That said, I don't think you're ever going to like get a direct link to a gambling app or be able to place a bet in Apple Sports. I don't think they'll go that far.
I'm not, and by the way, and I'm not pillaring them for this. I'm just disappointed. I do feel as though like they've made these kind of decisions on other issues in the past. Like they've said that again, they could actually create a much better experience for a lot of their users if they didn't care so much about privacy. But they've made the choice that privacy is something that's this is one of our defining things. I'm not a gambler myself. I also appreciate the fact that people have to make their own mistakes and make their own choices, that these gambling apps, they're illegal for, I think most states, the legal age is at least 18. Although there, again, a lot of the coverage about these things is that there are ways around it, and DraftKings is interested in tracking it, but not terribly interested in tracking it, so to speak. My feeling is that if people are gambling, they've got a much more sophisticated app that they would want to use anyway. I feel as though Apple had an opportunity to say, let's make this clean. Let's not even, and they declined that opportunity, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
One last thing though. I do want to know if someone is an underage user, is it automatically off by default, or if see, I don't have
no, because they don't know your age.
Well, they know your age as a user, but
do they? Does Apple know how old you are?
If the Apple ID is to someone that they know to be under 18, I want that off by default.
Right.
That would be a big problem.
Thing is, you're both right that I'm sure serious gambling addictive people have their own app, but maybe they're avoiding that app. Maybe they deleted that app, and there's that little hint. Oh, those odds! Look, I think I can beat those odds, and win is enough. It's enough. It's a trigger. It's like
I honestly am so beaten down by the prevalence of gambling stuff in my sports these days that I was just relieved that you could turn it off. But I agree. Sure. Ideally, they shouldn't be there, or they should ask, or you should have to go turn it on.
Apple is a capitalistic enterprise, and I'm sure they're always doing the calculus, not from a moral point of view, but what should we not have, and what should we have based on revenue projections.
Well, and I think that it's also
it's not moral on their part. They may want you to think it's moral, that they're carefully weighing, whether we should have alcohol, tobacco, and drugs, or gambling or not. But no, it's a purely economic decision. Come on, guys. These guys are good managers.
I think from a sports app would be hard. I mean, I think that it would be seen as prudish to not have that, not at least have the odds in there, given that. I mean, this has been odds. We had Jimmy Greek in the 90s.
We've always had odds. I know.
80s,
odds in sports have been tied together pretty tightly for a long time. And
we've also always had Budweiser ads, and Apple has so far resisted that. When you met with Eddie Q, was it to specifically talk about this app, Jason?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
One-on-one with Eddie Q the day when he just flew back from Vegas from the Super Bowl to talk about. I mean, if anything says this is his baby. That, right? That he did one-on-ones with press when he was presumably pretty tired from the Super Bowl. And that's the case. I don't know. Do they have liquor? I know Amazon doesn't do liquor ads in their sports broadcasts. I don't know if Apple does or not, but the gambling stuff is in there. So I would imagine that there probably are beer ads or something in the Apple TV games, but I don't know that.
This goes along, by the way, with the addition of The Athletic to Apple News as well, right?
He mentioned that, right? That they have added athletic content to News Plus, and so that's another part of their kind of like sports agglomeration. I would not be surprised. Like I said, I do agree with Andy. The simplicity of it as sort of like the weather app is great. I would imagine at some point you're going to be able to see headlines of your favorite teams in that app. And the athletic content will be extra good for that, right? Because they've got beat writers for most of the major teams.
What's their attitude on Sherlocking, though, a third-party ecosystem? I mean, Apple could easily do apps in a lot of areas that would be fantastic.
First off, we talked here, and they didn't talk about this, but we talked here about why it makes sense strategically for them. But I think from Eddie's perspective, his pitch was most scores apps are really bad because they're either trying to get you to bet, or they're trying to put gross ads in front of you, or they're trying to sell you on some other thing that they're doing. Like they have an ulterior motive that because it's expensive to do to get the data sources and to push it all out there. And Apple, because it's the traditional thing with Apple, right? They're playing a different game than their competitors, so they can come out with something that is simpler and cleaner because all they want to do is show you the scores and put a link to Apple TV in there, right? Like, I mean, I think that's the motivation here so I don't think they're worried about it. I don't think that they feel like, they didn't really justify buying Dark Sky and putting them out of business to make the weather app better. So I think they're certainly not going to justify it now. But if I when I talked to him about it, Eddie Q basically said, a lot of people still like Google the name of their team in order to see the score because and I do that because a lot of those score apps are, they're okay, but they're actually full of junk because they've got to make money somehow. And Apple is playing, you're right. Apple can make their platform a little nicer and then drive you toward their TV app. And that's a benefit for them. But, try being a third party to do that.
And I have to admit, I don't gamble at all, but I love looking at what the odds are. what are people
we
like
talk
putting
about
the odds on? It's
neither
entertaining to me.
Neither do we.
But
we talk about it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really look at that way. And the same thing. I would love to have something. At first I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna ever use the sports app, but I was like, well, it's not Steeler season, so I don't even call it football season. It's just not Steeler season. So if it's Steeler season, then I check it all the time. If I'm not watching the thing, I'm checking it like every 5 minutes and refreshing Google to do that, to figure out where things are. So it'd be great to have an app that was doing that relatively fast and not junkified with everything else that I'm not interested in. And I don't think that, like, if you look at Apple made a weather app, but I use Carrot. So I think that Carrot's very different than weather, and so especially if you turn up the attitude. And so I enjoy Carrot. And so I don't think that Apple, I think that if you're making something that's utilitarian and it isn't, and it's got a lot of junk in it, or it's got a lot of other things, you're going to have a hard time competing. But if you're making something that's really original, it can be doing the same thing that Apple's doing, and you'll still be able to succeed.
Yeah, you're reminding me of one feature that I was kind of surprised that the sports app doesn't have, which is like I am a local sports. I'm not into, like a lot of people in New England, I'm not into sports. I'm into the Red Sox. I'm into the Celtics. I'm into the Bruins. I'm into the Patriots. I'm into the Beanpot tournament. Those kind of things. I'm surprised you can't just simply like allow access to location and simply say, give me sports from 02134. And so basically, it auto populates like the New England college hockey leagues, minor league sports, things I might not necessarily know about or might not be immediately on my radar, but I would be interested in just any baseball that's happening at any sort of professional level. Give me the Cape Cod League. I'm sure it's going to be a long time before the summer Cape Cod Baseball League is going to be part of Apple Sports or on their radar. But I'm kind of surprised you can't simply say just autofill Boston and let's go from there.
By the way, excellent article on sixcolors.com. Thank you, Jason. Simple complexity, he writes. Apple's trio of sports apps. So if you want to make sense of all of this, this article.
Right, because there is a way, if you're like, wait a second, it doesn't do live activities. The answer is it doesn't, because that's in the TV app. I know. Well, and when it doesn't have news stories, it's because it's in the news app. And they all sync. Your favorite teams sync across all of those apps. You just have to go to different apps. I know. I mean, I'm not making the news. I'm just reporting it.
And making sense of it, which is good.
Trying to make sense.
Thank you, Jason, for doing that. Let's see. We're going to get to the picks in just a sec, so I want to make sure we get everything in here. Apple Care support advisors are testing a new Chat GPT-like tool they call Ask. It's internal though, right? You don't get to see Ask. That makes sense though. If you can put all of the manuals, all of the information in that notebook that you have to page through in a simple query interface, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and it's a good way to quietly in-house test AI models that you're hoping to put into the operating system at some later date or put into extra services. It sounds like it's not just doing like a Chat GPT sort of ask a question, give an answer. It's saying here's all the data that is in this radar, that's in this support request, and here is a sample response that the human can then basically okay or edit or disregard. So yeah, it sounds like it's more ambitious than certainly just here's a way to streamline our customer service. Although if all it does is makes it easier for people to get access to really good quality information vetted by an actual human being at Apple, that would be a big win for everybody.
I like the Wired.com writer Lauren Good, who said she wanted to test crying in the Vision Pro. We should have put this in our Vision Pro segment. She watched a steady diet of sad movies, but just to see what it was like to cry in the Vision Pro. Have either of you guys cried in your Vision Pro yet? I'm a big
Oh man, what was it? There was some movie that I watched that I was like,
well up.
And Stephen Hackett and David Sparks on their Mac Power Users podcast, they did an episode that I think was called "Tears Fell on My Vision Pro" or something. Tears on My Light Seal, something like that. And it was the same thing. It was, it's a little cushion. It'll dry out. It's okay. You can cry. It's all right to cry.
It's okay.
Crying gets the sad out of you.
Get the sad out.
Rosie Greer taught me that.
Sad out.
Free to be you and me. For those who are not children of the non-Gen Xers in the group, you can look it up. Marla Thomas, Free to be you and me. Great, tough football player Rosie Greer saying it's all right to cry. Anyway, Yeah, I mean, the good news is you're not going to short it out because it goes into the light seal. And
according to Reuters, Apple's going to get a new messaging and communications team member, former deputy press secretary for President Biden. Apple's hiring Olivia Allaire Dalton. She's deputy assistant to the president, White House principal deputy press secretary. Will take on a senior communications role at Apple. She's been with Biden for 20 years. Interesting.
That's interesting. So I wonder why she's leaving now, particularly in an election year.
Well, that's exactly when you want to get out, actually. I think that's exactly. You just nailed it, Andy.
I mean, I guess. I mean, if the offer was on the table, it might not be in a year if she suddenly needs a job.
Shareholders meeting is tomorrow. There are some proposals Apple has absolutely no interest in. So you can pretty much be sure that they will not go anywhere. Also, let's see what else in the shareholders news. They want Apple to reveal their use of AI. This is from the Financial Times.
Yeah. They want to disclose their use of AI, and do they have any ethical guidelines in place similar to like Google's published AI principles?
Yeah. This is coming from the Norway Wealth Fund, the Norges Bank Investment Management and Legal in General, Apple's 8th and 10th largest shareholders, respectively. That's pretty big guns there. Yeah. They asked the company to disclose any ethical guidelines the company has adopted regarding its use of AI technology. So not the source or what they're doing with AI, but what ethical guidelines. That's a fair question. That's a fair question.
Yeah, and Apple's already basically told the SEC, hey, we don't want to have to do this because it'll disclose like secret information. The SEC said, yeah, try again. So Apple's just saying, yeah, please, shareholders, don't vote for this.
Shareholders will get to vote.
We love you. Look at how much money we're making for you. We're all happy.
Proposal was submitted by the AFL-CIO. AFL-CIO. I always like to put the of in. It makes me sound old. Apple has launched a new open source programming language. This happened earlier this month. We didn't talk about Pickle. I'm pretty sure you pronounce that Pickle.
Yeah, it stands for Python, Kotlin, and Lisp. I put this in because I thought it was interesting. So it is a programming language for configuration. Like configuration and settings files. So essentially, if you're basically, it's code that you can create that you can then include in your actual project library and have it generate Python code that generates these configuration files or profiles or settings files, or generates it as Lisp. How was the last time you heard Lisp mentioned as something that's supported, or Kotlin? It's open source. It was created by Apple. If you go to the website, it looks like a beautiful Apple designed website, although you have to really scroll down to see that yes, this is an Apple project. The logo, if they have hats, I want one of the hats. It is a green gear with a pickle slice as the circle inside it. I would pay $30 or $40 for such a hat were it available at One Infinite Loop. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. It must have been a solution to a problem that they were working on a lot internally. And the idea that, hey, let's open source this and try to turn this into a thing, particularly something as polished as this, seems really interesting. But obviously I admit that all I've been reading are like Medium posts from developers who've been trying to use it.
It's kind of funny
kind of like it. Yeah.
P-lists and JSON and all of these file XML formats were kind of designed so you could write them like they were, but they got so complicated. Now you have to have code to write the code. Jason Snell, Andy Iannacco, Alex Lindsay. It's all right to cry. Get that sad right out of your head. Our show today brought to you by CashFly. Man, if you are trying to stream video to 1 million concurrent users, you probably are shedding a tear or two. You need CashFly. For over 20 years, CashFly has held the track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery, serving over 5,000 companies, over 80 countries. And we know how good CashFly is because for the last decade or more, we've been using CashFly right here at Twit.tv. They're our content delivery network, our CDN. We love their lag-free video loading, their hyper-fast downloads, the friction-free site interactions. CacheFly is the only CDN really built for throughput, with ultra-low latency video streaming that, yes, can deliver video to over 1 million concurrent users with latency under a second. You get lightning-fast gaming, downloads faster, zero lag, glitches, or outages. If you got a website, you'll love mobile content optimization, offering automatic and simple image optimization. Actually, not just for websites, for apps too, but it means it'll load faster on any device, on any size screen. Flexible month-to-month billing for as long as you need. Discounts for fixed terms when you're ready. You design your contract when you switch to CacheFly. We did. We're really glad we did, too. CacheFly delivers rich media content up to 158% faster than other major CDNs and allows you to shield your content in their cloud, ensuring a 100% cache hit ratio. And with CacheFly's elite managed packages, you get the VIP treatment. I know we do. Your dedicated account manager is with you from day one, ensuring a smooth implementation and a reliable 24/7 support that's there when you need it. Learn how you can get your first month free. CacheFly.com/twit. You've heard me say it for years. Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by CacheFly at CacheFly.com/twit. Thank you, CacheFly. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. You've made Twit possible over all these years. Time for our picks of the week. Jason Snell, why don't you kick it off?
All right. This is a simple app. There have been, over the history of the iPhone, a whole lot of different scanning apps, but the fact is a lot of them are kind of long in the tooth, or they've gotten full of like Baroque features that are for people who are scanning documents all the time. And a lot of us scan a handful of documents every month or every year. Greg Pierce, the guy who wrote the great app Drafts of Agile Tortoise software.
Yes.
Has a new app, just came out. It's called Simple Scan. It is free. You can try it for, I think, 5 scans. And then you can either spend $5 a year or just pay $20 and get it forever. And it is simple. Like you do a scan and it says, do you want the scan to be a message? Do you want it to be a share? Do you want it to save it to a file? And then it does all of the edge detection. I love that Apple has document scanning built into the OS now, but it's built into Notes. And then getting those scans out of Notes is a real pain. So what I really want is something that just very quickly will scan documents, put them in a PDF. It optionally, I think it's turned on by default, will OCR, basically index the document so it's searchable, and save it, where in my case, save it to files, to a shared folder, so that other people can look at my receipts and stuff like that. And, I think you need something like this in your life. Something this simple might be a better solution than some of the more complicated things that are out there. But I find myself, once you have a document scanner app on your phone, and in a pinch, you can absolutely use Notes. But it's so useful, because then you're in that moment where you're like, do I need to take this somewhere and get a photocopy? And no, I won't. Or maybe you take a picture of it. And the good thing about the scanning software is it detects that it's a document. It knows that it's probably black and white. It detects the edges of the paper. It de-distorts it. And you end up with a PDF that actually looks pretty good, like an actual scanner scanned it, instead of your dumb hands holding an iPhone at a weird angle. So check it out if this sounds like either you have never really thought about doing something like this, or you're using an older, let's say, scanning app that maybe is not working reliably anymore. That was the case with mine that I was using before. And so I'm excited that Greg put this together pretty quickly, because getting things into Notes, it's nice that Notes is on every iPhone, but boy, I struggle. Apple really just wants you to scan things into Notes and leave them there. And I almost never want to scan them into Notes and leave them there. So
you get 5 scans for free, it looks like.
For free.
And then to get the professional version is $5 a year. That's nothing.
Or 20 if you just want to go all in.
Give them all the money.
And then they'll never ask again.
And go pro. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And this is a real, well-known developer with a very well-respected, long-time app, Drafts.
I've been subscribing to Drafts since it came out. I use it all the time. Yeah.
And I'm in the process of getting it. There are a lot of different ones, so pay attention to what you're buying.
Yeah, you want the one from it. There are a bunch that are called Simple Scan with a bunch of things, but
it's Simple Scan, Quick Scanner, and Agile Tortoise is the developer.
Right. And actually, if you watch this or listen to this episode in the next week or so, MacStories.net just did a story about it, and you can get the link direct from there. For example, but yeah, don't get the wrong one.
So I'm going to scan. Let me just try something. Does it do OCR too? So I'm scanning at a ridiculous angle. I just scanned at a ridiculous angle. And let's see here. Oh, and now I can email it off to everybody I know.
Yeah, great.
And it fixed the angle and everything. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
And in fact, it scanned it right
simple
to email. That's nice.
Yeah, a lot of these apps just started to get weird where they wanted to add bells and whistles in order to keep you in the app. And I think Greg's reaction was, could someone just make an app that keeps it simple? And he said, well, I guess that's me. So
yeah. Good job. Nice job. Keep it simple. Mr. Andy Nacco, pick of the week.
I'm going to reiterate and hopefully amplify Alex's pick of the week from like a couple months ago. The Great American Solar Eclipse is happening on April 8th. And this is the reason why I picked this today was that I think the window is closing on your being able to buy like proper solar eclipse viewing glasses and getting them like in time for the big show. When Alex recommended these like about a month or two ago, I literally like ordered them like before the show was over because I knew that I was the sort of person who would forget until like late March and then I'd kind of be hosed.
Can you see anything, Andy, at all? Anything?
I can see pretty much reflections into my own black dark soul, but that's about it.
But that's what you want. If you could see anything, you'd be worried.
Which makes me confident that that these are proper glasses. But another reason for mentioning this today is that like as we get closer to the event, the only ones that are going to be left are ones by like scammers who are selling you basically very dark. Exactly. So they're not safe at all. Go to. I'm recommending there. If you go to the Planetary Society's website, planetary.org, they've got a whole piece on here's how to check. Here's what kind of glasses to get. Here are sources that have legit glasses. Here's things you absolutely should not use, like saying don't use ordinary sunglasses or multiple pairs of sunglasses stacked. Neutral density polarizing filters, smoke glass, photographic or X-ray film, emergency blankets, potato chip bags, DVDs. What you're looking for is something that is ISO
chip bags.
I don't know exactly. ISO 12312-2 compliant. Although again, they're saying that the scammers will just take that logo and just slap it on the box, no problem. Right. You can also get now. This is why like if there's any reason, I'm glad that I have the glasses. They're really again they're really cool, but they're more like 1980s like comedy like the what the nerd buys at the 1980s comedies because he thinks it'll make him look cool. What I was hoping for another 80s sort of thing, the sort of like mad scientist, crackpot inventor glasses that Thomas Dolby might have worn in She Blinded Me with Science, the music video. Those are so you can get welding glasses with number 14 IR filters, and on Amazon you can get them for anywhere from $30 to $40 or $50. I might actually buy another pair of those because it seems like something I would like to have like on the shelf for when I just want the rest of the neighborhood to think I'm very odd and leave me alone for the rest of the day.
I definitely want these. These are amazing. Yeah. Wow. And you can get them with the right filter for watching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're useful too beyond the Eclipse because they're replaceable filters. So you can buy like the number 14s for the Eclipse, but then also like buy lighter ones for the beach, really like clear, transparent ones for weddings.
Wear them everywhere.
You'll get a lot of use.
These are the ultimate steampunk glasses. You've seen them, fake ones, but now you could have the real deal.
Just don't wear them as the band on a top hat because I really think that's played out. They're good enough. They're a bold enough fashion statement on their own. They can exist on their own. But again, make it whatever you do. Like you can even get the cheap paper ones that are like less than $10. But you should probably place your order this week. You should probably make sure you place your order from a very legitimate, reputable place because if you forget about it now, by the time you remember it, you're again this Planetary Society article gives you some tests you can do on glasses that have been sold to you to make sure that they're actually going to keep your eyes safe. But I think that window's starting to close really rapidly.
Are you in the line of totality?
No, but apparently we're going to get 90% around here. So that's good. That's reason enough for me to stare at the sun.
I was thinking of visiting Mom in April. That might be the week to go.
You know,
Nice.
the Cleveland Indians opening day is during the eclipse, and they're in the path of totality, so they're going to take an eclipse break. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, you know what? That would even be better. Oh, that would be
Cleveland
so much
Guardians.
fun.
They're the Guardians now. Anyway, Cleveland is in the path of totality, as are Dallas. A bunch of big cities are
I'm
in
going
the
to
path of
Texas.
totality, so it's going to be awesome.
You're going to Texas?
Yeah, a bunch of us in office hours are descending on Texas, and we're still figuring out exactly where we want to go because we're trying to get internet so that we can stream it.
Yes.
It's 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're in the totality and the reason we're going to Texas specifically is because it has the highest percentage chance of not having clouds.
Of not having bad weather. Yeah. Because that's a really messed up kind of, everything's mixed up that time of year, but Texas has a lot of parts. I'll be in Texas too. So.
Oh, the Guardians moved their
it's a small
game.
state.
See where we're at. Yeah. But we have Graham Jones and Ann Buckle from Time and Date. They cover these eclipses, every eclipse somewhere in the world, and they're going to be on office hours on Thursday.
Nice.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that Andy was going to talk about that.
So the Guardians moved their game to just after the eclipse. So you can go to the stadium, watch the eclipse, and then the game.
Oh, you can go in
starts.
early? Yeah, because the game won't begin until 5:10, but the eclipse totality ends at 4:29.
3:17. But
So that's perfect. Yeah, 3:17.
gates open at 2 p.m. So you can come early, watch the eclipse.
I wonder if they're going to. They should
Awesome.
give. They can't. They can't give you. I was going to say they should give you sunglasses on the way in. Like that's the thing you get.
Yeah,
with,
they make
branded
paper
and everything else.
Yeah.
You could go to get Bill Nye's paper
liability.
sunglasses.
Somebody's going to sue somebody.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Alex, are you worried about being in a really like religious state like Texas at a time when God takes the sun away? Are you worried that some people might overreact
That's
to that
why
phenomenon?
he's going.
I saw the last total eclipse in Idaho, and I survived it, so I think it's okay.
I think he's going. He's going for the rapture. You want to be there, don't you?
I want to be there right at the ground zero. No, I saw it in Bend, Oregon. We were covering it for National Geographic, and
Fun.
And it is, if you haven't,
There's something
if you're
about it
somewhere near
spooky.
this,
Yeah.
it is. There's a hole in the sky. It is a hole, and it's
it's night,
crazy.
and it's night. So the other thing I'll say, so I dragged my kids to Idaho, and they're like, whatever, Dad. It's one of my dad's things, like baseball and space things and whatever. And then the total eclipse happens. My daughter turns to me and she is crying, and she says, I didn't know it would be like this, because if you've been dragged outside by a friend, like look at the shadows of the leaves of the trees, and it looks like
cool.
a little crescent moon. That's all cool. Totality is it's like a different thing. You shouldn't even call it the same thing, because literally it's suddenly nighttime. The birds stop chirping.
The animals,
and the solar corona comes out, and it's this thing that's invisible otherwise, and it's this giant fuzz all around the sun, and the stars come out. It is amazing. So see it if you can.
I can tell you that the one time that I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time for a totality was, I could probably find out what the date was, but it was in the 70s. I was a little kid, definitely in the single digits in age, and I still remember. That's one of the few things from like my kindergarten, pre-K, or whatever days that I remember with absolute clarity. I can describe everything from where I was, and because that was like something bigger than Phil.
Oh man, COVID is the only reason I didn't go to South America I don't travel very much anymore, but South America, I had planned to go down. We're going to this one. I'm already planning Greenland. Greenland's the next one. It's a couple of years from now. And it doesn't come back to the United States until 2044, I think. So it's not going to, so it's quite a while before we see it again. So if you're anywhere near it, and plan ahead, because it will be busy. Like you need to be like, don't think you're just going to go show up somewhere an hour before to see it. If you're in the line of totality, we were talking to a little town in Texas because we're trying to figure out where to put our gear. And they're like, yeah, we expected we're a town of 1,800. We expect 50,000 people to be in the area.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think traffic is the biggest problem, because what I found being out in the middle and all those things, but what I found is like space, like there's a lot of space on the ground, and the path of totality in terms of like square footage is enormous. So you'll find some place to stand. The problem is, where do you park? And then when it's over, how do you get out? And like, can you find a place to stay in a hotel that's nearby? Those are all the problems.
And for me, it's like camper, get there the day before,
Well, yeah.
barbecue afterwards.
Yeah. That's the way we were in a lot of traffic in Idaho after the eclipse. It was quite a thing.
We'll spend the whole afternoon just cooking barbecue or something.
That's a good idea. I
not even bother to think about trying to leave. Yeah.
I will be disappointed with you, Alex, if you don't while you're waiting, take a look around, find somebody who might be clutching a religious object or beads, and say, "Wow, that's a nice 2023 Ford F800 or whatever. I'll give you $500 cash for it right now."
Oh, you're cold. That's
and they'll
mean.
think that, well, I'm going to be raptured in 8 minutes anyway. The fool doesn't know that the devil's coming to claim him in 10 minutes. And then drive off. You'll have to miss the eclipse, but you'll get like an $80,000 truck for
and
a good story to tell people to people who are very upset.
Are you going, John Slanina? Are you going to know? Oh, you went last time.
I saw the last two in the United
Last
States.
two. Yeah, we were on a geek cruise for the eclipse in 2012 or 13, whatever that was.
Australia?
Yeah, we went to Australia.
Yeah.
Nice.
I missed that one. I should have done that one.
Cairns. Yeah, it was a geek cruise. Cairns. It was fun. Yeah. Cairns. Well, it wasn't that much fun. I've told the story before, but famed astronomer Lawrence Krauss was on board with us, and he was a little miffed because just as the totality began, the captain got afraid, not of spooks and spirits, but that the clouds would cover it, so he fired up the engines and sailed away and didn't really get us anywhere near the eclipse ever again. So
April 9th episode of MacBreak Weekly, by the way. Who will be here? Alex and I think, will not.
Coming in
better
remote.
start planning.
I'll be coming in remote. I'm working out a place to.
I think I'll be on a plane then.
Austin.
So,
now, Jason, can I ask you, because I'm glad to hear you say because you'll be on a plane. You might, but there's still like a little chance you might be raptured. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, right. I may be the aliens may come and take me.
There might be an empty T-shirt draped on the chair when we cut to you on Zoom.
But I will probably be on a plane that day, flying home from Dallas.
Flying home. You're going down to Dallas. Great.
Yeah.
Wow. How exciting. Are you, wow. But you're not meeting up with Alex.
My sister-in-law's family is in Texas.
Oh,
so
perfect.
we're going to actually my wife's family and I we're all going to meet there and hang out. And then also there will be an eclipse. So it was a good excuse to get the family together at a place. It's like find family in the path of totality and visit them.
We should get together every time God swallows the giant day ball.
No, Andy, as you know, this just in. I'm getting a report now. As we know, since he first saw the sun, man has dreamed of destroying it, and so now the moon will do the next best thing.
Be a good time to go to Mazatlan. You're going to get a nice 4 minutes and 15 seconds of
tempting.
Darkness.
That it is tempting.
Yeah, it's very tempting. Mr. Alex Lindsay is next with, I think your very first handmade artisanal organic pick of the week.
Yeah, so it's such a great marketing thing that, so I didn't know anything about this. This is my whole family's gotten hooked on these. These are called jam bars. And they're out of Marin. They're out of this county.
Local people.
But how we got hooked into them was so funny. So I went to the Toadette Sprocket concert in the fall. So and they handed these out. They gave these if you were there.
Alex and I were both there. I've got that poster too. Yeah.
Yeah. So they give you this poster as you leave, which I thought was awesome. But they also did they give jam bars away as you left?
Yeah, we got some jam bars.
Yeah. And I was like, this is a really good bar. You didn't like it? You didn't like it?
Actually, I did. I thought it was pretty good, but I didn't buy any more of them. So
the funny thing is, I don't know where to buy them. I don't know where to buy them other than Amazon. So I bought a box of them. I was like, oh, this is really good. And I really like energy bars because I keep them when I do work. I always have 3 or 4 energy bars in case meals get broken up or whatever. So I'm always like, it's Cliff bars or Power bars or this bar or that bar. And so I'm always researching them for the team and for myself. So I got them. I was like, these are really good. These are really good jam bars.
What flavors do you recommend? I was thinking maybe I should.
So there's a lot of drama about that in my family. So we have a lot of discussions. You're only going to see this jazzberry one because my daughter will take all of them as soon as she knows that there's a box here. So the jazzberry and the mangoes, the women like, and then there is malt and chocolate cha-cha, and malt nut melody. The boys like the boys like the malt.
Oh,
and
melody,
the
because it's music, baby.
So what they do is they give half of their net profits to music programs in Marin. So
Nice.
So they're
supporting
it's a GM bar. So supporting
neighbors.
like local music. It's like music in high schools and stuff like that. And so so it's kind of cool that they're giving money away, and you can get them on Amazon because again I've never seen them in a store in Marin. I'm sure they're around somewhere, but I haven't seen them. But you can order them on Amazon by the box. I would recommend if you decide to buy this, just buy the one that is like 12.
I'm buying the 48 bar mixed case.
Well,
with
there you go.
One 12 count box for each flavor, so that we can have them for the entire team.
So then you guys can let us know in a week or two.
I look forward to seeing those in the snack bowl the next time I visit.
Next time you visit. Now you really want to come visit, don't you?
Yeah, but they're good. They're good. I like companies that are giving back something to. Some amount back to the community, and they're good. And I wouldn't recommend them if they didn't actually taste good. And so I buy them by the box. The family absorbs them when they go on little trips, and then I buy another box. So
next time you're in the studio, you'll have your choice, unless John snarfs up all the chocolate cha-cha.
They're all good. Just some are better than others. So.
Malt Nut Melody sounds really, really good. That's which one's your favorite?
My favorite is somewhere between chocolate and malt nut, but I like it. I don't the jazzberry, which is the one I actually got that I thought was good enough to go buy them, is probably my least favorite. I like them all.
Yeah.
The mango one is really good as well.
Yeah, they look good. Well, we're going to have all four here at the studio as soon as the mailman can deliver it.
There you go.
Thank you, Alex Lindsay. OfficeHours.global, the place to go to see what's going on in the world. It's every morning. The Secret Life of Splines this morning. I know you want to know more about that.
Yeah, there's a picture for you.
Yep.
We were talking about how splines are a very basic skill that most people don't know anymore. It's kind of like it's a lost art among most of us that do it. Yeah. But it's really important and still makes a difference. And so we decided to talk about splines. Tomorrow we're talking about field recording, so like taking sound devices and stuff in. As I said, we had we're talking about Eclipses on Thursday, and on Friday, Nathan Schlegel, who designs stages and all for big events and concerts and everything else, is going to come on and talk about how he does that. So,
good stuff.
Normal week.
Join it for free. OfficeHours.global. Andy is going to be Thursday. He's going to be on WGBH. Are you going to the library for that, Andy?
Nope. I'm from the home studio on Thursdays. Hopefully next time we'll be in the library. They actually did a redecorate. Now they've got I'd love to show it to Alex. Now they have these LCD more display screens as part of the set, whereas before it used to be like a little temporary. So yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds cool.
Go to WGBHnews.org to stream it live or later as usual.
Mr. Snell, 6colors.com. Thank you so much. Catch all his podcasts at 6colors.com/podcast. Only 5 this week. He's taking it easy.
Only 5. Light week.
Taking it easy.
Taking it easy.
We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. Everybody can watch it. We stream it live on YouTube now at youtube.com/twit during the broadcast. So you can watch live there. Of course, if you're in our club, you can watch it before and after the show. The streams are much more, they go on and on and on. And of course, by being in the club, not only do you get that, you get access to the Club Twit Discord, which is where the streams live, all the great conversation. You get ad-free versions of all the shows, tracker-free versions as well. I was talking in the Twit forums at twit.community about that. We just turned down a big ad agency that said you have to add another tracker. They call them pixels, but really it's a redirect in the feed so that we can, see who's downloading it. We said no, which means we lost a number of advertisers because, and this is our policy is we don't want to overload you with trackers. There's a little ad tracking in our ad-supported feeds. We have to give them some, but then you give an inch and they take a mile, and agencies want more and more. And this is really what's happening in the world of podcasting. We're trying to hold the line. For several reasons, not merely because we don't want to do it, because we know you don't want us to do it, and we feel like this would be kind of a betrayal of our audience. So That means we rely on you more than ever before for the support that keeps the shows on the air. We made it inexpensive, and I think we made it, some extra benefits that make it worthwhile, but really do it because you like Twit and you listen to Twit and you want to support our content. All the shows are ad-free. You get bonus content. You get video of shows that we only produce in audio, like iOS Today. You also get, of course, the Discord and our endless thank you. We appreciate our club members more than you know. If you're not yet a member, twit.tv/clubtwit. Did I mention it's only $7 a month? It's not much. And we're going to keep that price low. $84 a year. There's family plans and corporate plans. Twit.tv/clubtwit. Thank you in advance. Studies show Twit Club members are happier than others, says Dr. Do. And he's a doctor, so you should listen to him. After the fact, though, we do make ad-free and ad-supported versions of the show available. The former for the club members, the latter for everyone else at twit.tv/MBW for MacBreak Weekly. There's also a YouTube channel dedicated to MacBreak Weekly. You can get the video there. And, of course, the best way to get it, subscribe. And that way you'll get it the minute it's available. Just choose your favorite podcast player and search for MacBreak Weekly. Thank you, gentlemen. Alex Lindsay, Andy Anako, Jason Snell. Thank you, club members. Thank you to all you who watch and merely watch and listen. We will see you next time. But now I have to tell you, sad to say, it's time to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.